My name is Agatha, and I was 76 years old the day my life truly ended, and a new, terrifying one began. It didn't start with a doctor's bad news or a fall, but with the sound of a sputtering engine and tires crunching the frozen gravel of my long, unkempt driveway. I put down my lukewarm tea, my knuckles aching from the damp November cold that always settled deep in the bones of this old Pennsylvania house. I squinted through the window and saw my daughter Trina's rusty blue sedan. But she wasn't just stopping by. One by one, 6 small figures tumbled out, clutching worn-out backpacks and stuffed animals like they were shields against the world. I wrapped my thin, knitted cardigan tighter around my frail shoulders and stepped onto the sagging porch, the wood groaning under my slippers. "Trina, honey? What's all this? You didn't say you were coming. Are the children all right?" My daughter wouldn't look at me. Her eyes were hollowed out, dark circles under them like deep, purple bruises. She was thinner than I'd ever seen her, her coat hanging off her like a shroud. Jareth, the oldest at 15, was already pulling a black trash bag full of clothes from the trunk, his movements angry and jerky. The younger ones, Oswin, Cassidy, Naoma, Calla, and little Lowell, just stood on the patchy, frost-covered grass, shivering in their thin jackets. "I can't," Trina whispered, her voice cracking like ice on a pond. I can't do this anymore, Mom. They're yours now." My heart stopped. Not slowed down, it physically stopped beating for a second. "What are you talking about, Trina? Yours? They're your children. You can't just, what?" I tried to laugh, thinking it was some cruel, awful joke, but the sound caught in my dry throat like a shard of glass. She walked right past the children, ignoring their small, confused faces. She stormed up the porch steps until she was in my face, and I could smell the stale coffee and sour desperation on her breath. She grabbed my hand, her fingers cold and strong, and shoved something into my palm, crumpling my arthritic fingers around it. "This is it, Mom. This is all I have left." She forced my hand open. It was a $50 bill and a crumpled, torn single. $51. "Don't look for me. Don't call me. I'm done. He's gone, and I'm gone. Trina! Trina!" I screamed, my voice thin and useless against the rising wind. The children finally broke. Little Lowell, only 4, let out a heart-wrenching wail, "Mommy." Cassidy reached out a small, trembling hand, "Mommy, don't go." But Trina didn't even flinch. The car doors slammed shut, a sound of absolute finality. The engine roared, spitting gravel and mud as she reversed, and then she was gone. Just a cloud of gray exhaust hanging in the cold air, stinging my eyes. I stood there, frozen, the $51 feeling like a burning coal in my palm. 7. I was 76 years old, and there were 7 of us. I looked at the 6 faces staring up at me, their eyes wide with a terror that mirrored my own. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me more than the wind, what was in my bank account. I had $112. My meager Social Security check wasn't due for 2 more weeks. That money, plus this $51, was all we had. I herded them inside, the small, 2-bedroom bungalow suddenly feeling like a crowded, fragile shoebox. That night, I fed them the last of my pantry, 2 cans of green beans and a half-box of oatmeal. After they cried themselves to sleep, piled under every blanket I owned, I sat at my kitchen table, the $51 smoothed out in front of me. I was 76, in debt, and responsible for 6 souls. I didn't just feel hopeless, I felt like I was already buried. I put my head in my hands and, for the first time, I prayed not for help, but for an end. As I sat there, I heard a car door slam, not a sputtering engine, but a heavy, solid thud. Bright, flashing lights, one red, one blue, swept across my kitchen wall. My blood turned to ice. The flashing lights were not Trina. They belonged to a police cruiser. I pulled my cardigan tight and opened the door before they could knock. A young officer stood there, his hat in his hands. "Ma'am? Mrs. Agatha?" he asked, his voice soft. We received a call from your daughter, Trina. She wanted us to perform a wellness check to make sure the children were safe. My hands started to shake, not with fear, but with a cold, slow-burning rage. She had abandoned them, and then she had called the police on me. They are as safe as a 76-year-old woman with $163 to her name can make them, I said, my voice like gravel. The officer, to his credit, looked ashamed. He peered past me into the dark, cramped living room. He saw the 6 small bodies piled on the sofa and floor. Ma'am, she also filed a report with Child Protective Services. She said she was worried you couldn't care for them. This was her plan. She wasn't just leaving them, she was having them taken, scattering them to the wind so she would never be responsible. The officer left, his face grim, and I was left alone with the silence. The terror from before was gone, replaced by a dark, hard determination. She would not do this. She would not destroy these children. I went to the attic, my niece screaming in protest as I climbed the ladder. I pushed aside cobwebs and dusty boxes until I found it, a heavy, leather-bound book. My great-grandmother's recipe journal. It was all I had left of my family. I brought it downstairs, its pages smelling of vanilla and thyme, and opened it. My hands, twisted with arthritis, traced the elegant, faded script. I had no money. I had no strength. But I had this. I had flour, butter, and sugar. And I had 100 years of my family's baking secrets. I looked at the kids, sleeping fitfully, their faces stained with tears. She will not win, I whispered into the cold room. I stayed up all night, my mind racing. I would not let these children be separated. I would feed them. I would find a way. But as the sun rose, casting a gray light on the frosty windows, I knew a terrible truth. The officer's visit meant one thing: they were coming for the children. And they would be here soon. Agatha has a plan, but will CPS get there first? The knock came 2 days later. It wasn't a friendly knock, it was a sharp, official rap that echoed through the tiny house. A woman stood on my porch, holding a clipboard like a weapon. She wore a severe gray suit and did not smile. Mrs. Agatha? I'm Miss Gable, from Child Protective Services. I'm here to assess the children's living situation. She didn't wait for an invitation, pushing past me into the living room where the children were huddled, watching cartoons on my ancient, buzzing television. Her eyes missed nothing. She saw the peeling wallpaper. She saw the mattresses on the floor where Jareth and Oswin slept. She went into the kitchen and opened my refrigerator. It was nearly empty, save for a pitcher of water and a stick of butter. She opened the pantry and saw the 2 bags of flour and sugar I had bought with my precious money. This is not an adequate environment, she said, her voice flat and cold. 6 children cannot live like this. I just got them, I pleaded, my voice trembling. I'm doing my best. I just need a little time. Jareth, my 15-year-old grandson, stood up. He tried to make his voice deep. She's doing better than our mom ever did. Miss Gable just wrote something on her clipboard. I'm not here to discuss your mother, young man. I'm here to ensure your safety. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something, not pity, but process. You are unemployed, elderly, and have no income. The house is not up to code for this many occupants. Don't take them, I whispered, the words tearing out of my throat. Please. They've been through enough. Separating them will break them. Miss Gable sighed, a sound like dry leaves skittering on pavement. I'm not a monster, Mrs. Agatha. But I am an agent of the state. I cannot, in good conscience, leave them here like this. She clicked her pen. I'll give you 30 days. 30 days to prove you have a stable, verifiable income and a plan to feed and house these children properly. If you don't, I will have no choice but to place all 6 of them in foster care. 30 days. How can Agatha possibly make enough money to save her family? 30 days. The words echoed in my head like a death sentence. For 2 days, I was paralyzed by panic. I looked at the children, at their trusting, terrified faces, and I felt nothing but failure. On the 3rd day, I woke up with that cold, hard resolve back in my veins. I would not fail. I opened the old recipe book. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't fix the house. But I could do one thing. I could bake. I took the last of my $51 and went to the store. I bought butter, apples, sugar, and cinnamon. I came home and laid everything out on my small, clean counter. The children gathered around, drawn by the smell of baking. "What are you making, Grandma?" asked little Calla. "I'm making a miracle, honey," I whispered. I opened the book to a recipe I hadn't made in 30 years, my great-grandmother's Appalachian apple stack cake. It was a difficult, time-consuming recipe, with 7 thin, cookie-like layers, each one slathered in a spiced apple filling. My hands ached, and my back screamed, but I worked. The house, which had smelled of fear and dust, slowly filled with the aroma of cinnamon, baked apples, and warm molasses. For the first time since they arrived, the children weren't huddled in a corner. They were in the kitchen, helping me. Jareth peeled apples, Cassidy and Naoma measured flour, and even little Lowell helped stir. It was the first time I heard them laugh. By evening, I had one perfect, 7-layer cake. It was beautiful. It was all I had. I packed it up carefully. "Jareth," I said, "help me carry this." "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the diner," I said, putting on my coat. "We're going to sell it." We walked the half-mile to the town's only diner, the Crossroads. I walked in, holding the cake like it was a newborn baby. The owner, a tough woman named Maribel who I'd known for years, raised an eyebrow. "What's this, Agatha? You're not here for the early bird special." I placed the cake on her counter. "Maribel," I said, my voice shaking. "I need you to buy this." "Will Maribel buy the cake?" Maribel looked at the cake, then at me. She knew my story, everyone in our small town knew. She picked up a knife, cut a tiny sliver, and tasted it. Her eyes, usually hard and tired, went wide. She took another, bigger bite. "Agatha," she said, her voice rough. "I haven't tasted a stack cake like this since my own grandmother died." "Where did you get this?" "It's my great-grandmother's recipe," I said, holding my breath. She looked at me, then at Jareth, who was standing by the door trying to look tough. "I can't buy it," she said. My heart sank to the floor. "But," she continued, "I will sell it for you. I'll put it on the counter. We'll charge $4 a slice. You get 3, I get 1. It was more than fair." I nodded, too choked up to speak. I left the cake and went home. I didn't sleep. I just waited. At 9 a.m. the next morning, my phone rang. It was Maribel. "It's gone," she said. "What?" I panicked. "Someone stole it?" "No, Agatha, it's gone. It's sold out in an hour. I have 3 old men at the counter refusing to leave until they know when you're bringing another. Can you make 2 more? By tonight?" I looked at my pantry. The $21 I had just earned from the first cake wasn't much, but it was enough. "Yes," I said. "I can." That day, the kids and I became a team. We weren't a broken family, we were a bakery. Jareth and Oswin handled the heavy lifting, the girls measured and mixed, and I, with my aching hands, handled the delicate parts. We made 2 stack cakes and, using the leftover dough, a dozen Whispering Angels cinnamon rolls, another recipe from the book. We delivered them that evening. Maribel paid me in cash. $42. I went straight to the grocery store and bought eggs, milk, and vegetables. That night, for the first time, we had a real dinner. We had scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh milk. As I watched the children eat, I saw little Lowell, my youngest grandson, smile for the first time. It was a small victory, but it felt like the world. Agatha has a small business, but is it enough to stop Miss Gable? We fell into a rhythm. Every morning, I woke at 4 a.m. The kids would get up with me, rubbing sleep from their eyes. We'd bake. By 8 a.m., Jareth would deliver the stack cakes and cinnamon rolls to Maribel at the diner. By 8:30 a.m., they would be sold out. We were making just over $40 a day. It was enough to buy food, but it wasn't enough to prove stable income to Miss Gable. The 30-day deadline was breathing down my neck. We only had 1 week left. We were all exhausted. The kids were doing homework on the kitchen table between rolling dough. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night in weeks. My old body was at its limit. One afternoon, I was pulling a heavy tray of pies from the oven when the world suddenly went gray. The smell of apples and cinnamon vanished, replaced by a dark, metallic taste. I heard Cassidy scream, "Grandma," as my knees buckled. I didn't fall. Jareth caught me, his lanky 15-year-old arms surprisingly strong. "Grandma, you need to sit," he said, his voice cracking with fear. He helped me to my chair. The children surrounded me, their faces pale with terror. They had already lost their mother, they thought they were losing me, too. "I'm just tired, babies," I whispered, but my hands were shaking so hard I couldn't grip my water glass. "We can't do this, Grandma," Jareth said, his voice thick. "It's killing you." "We have to," I said. "We have 1 week." Just then, the phone rang. It was Maribel. "Agatha," she said, and she sounded strange, excited. "You need to get down to the diner. Right now." "What is it, Maribel? Is something wrong?" "Just get here," she said, and hung up. I pulled myself to my feet, my heart hammering. Jareth helped me walk. When we got to the diner, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a line. Not in the diner, but out the door and down the sidewalk. "What is this?" I asked Maribel. She pointed to a young woman sitting at a corner booth with a laptop and a camera. "That," Maribel said, "is a food blogger. She has 500,000 followers. She posted a video of your Whispering Angel rolls an hour ago. She called them a life-changing experience. Agatha has gone viral. Is this the miracle she's been praying for, or will it bring more trouble?" The young woman, her name was Kala, the same as my granddaughter, which I took as a sign, was tapping away on her laptop. She looked up and saw me. "Are you her?" she asked, her eyes wide. "Are you the angel baker?" I had no idea what she was talking about. Maribel explained. The blog post had gone viral. It was being shared all over the state. The line outside was full of people who had driven from as far as Philadelphia, all wanting to try my baking. I was in shock. "How many can you make?" Kala asked, her camera now pointed at me. "How many rolls? How many cakes?" I don't know," I stammered. "My kitchen is so small. My oven." "We need more," she said. "People are messaging me, asking to place orders." That night, we didn't sleep. My bungalow, my tiny, broken-down house, became a beacon. People from town, neighbors who had only whispered about my tragedy, started showing up. One brought a 50-pound bag of flour. Another brought eggs. Maribel closed the diner and brought her entire staff. "We're your kitchen crew tonight, Agatha," she said. We baked all night. The kids, seeing the community rally, were filled with a new energy. We baked dozens of cakes, hundreds of rolls. The next morning, we held a porch sale. We sold everything in 2 hours. I held a metal cash box in my lap, and as people paid, they shared their stories. They didn't just want the cake, they wanted to be part of our story. By the end of the day, I counted the money. It was over $3,000. I cried. I just sat on my porch step, buried my face in my apron, and sobbed. Jareth sat beside me and put his arm around my shoulder. "You did it, Grandma," he whispered. "You did it." As he said it, a gray county car pulled up. My heart stopped. It was Miss Gable. It was the 30th day. She got out of her car, her clipboard in hand, and stared at the empty tables, the leftover flour dust, and the metal box full of money in my lap. "Mrs. Agatha," she said, her voice unreadable. "What in the world is going on here?" I stood up, my back straight, though my knees were knocking. "This," I said, my voice clear and strong, "is my business. Agatha's kitchen. And this," I pointed to the children, who were standing behind me as a united front, "is my team." Miss Gable looked at the money. She looked at the happy, flour-dusted faces of my grandchildren. She looked at the line of cars still pulling up, hoping for leftovers. She slowly, deliberately, tore the top sheet off her clipboard. "It seems, Mrs. Agatha," she said, and I saw the barest hint of a smile, "that you have a verifiable, and I'd say thriving, home environment. I will be closing your case. Good luck with your kitchen." She got in her car and drove away. We were safe. The children cheered, a raw, joyful sound that brought tears to my eyes. The story, however, didn't end there. The viral post and the local news stories about the angel baker who saved her grandkids reached the city. A week later, a man in a very expensive suit knocked on my door. His name was Mr. Sterling, the CEO of a major gourmet food chain. He had tried my stack cake at the diner. "Mrs. Agatha," he said, "I've been in the food business for 40 years. Your product is not just good, it's an event. It's authentic. It's a story." He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had counted out my last $51, and he made me an offer. He wanted to buy my great-grandmother's recipes. All of them. The stack cake, the angel rolls, the pies. "How much?" Jareth asked, his arms crossed. Mr. Sterling looked at him. $250,000. I nearly fainted. $250,000. It was more money than I had seen in my entire life. It was safety. It was a new house. It was college for all 6 children. "But," Mr. Sterling continued, "I have a second offer. Don't sell me your recipes. Partner with me. We'll open a real Agatha's Kitchen flagship store. We'll package your products and put them in every gourmet store in America. You won't just get a check, you'll get a percentage of every single sale. You'll be the CEO." He stood up. "You have 24 hours to decide. Should Agatha take the safe money, or risk it all to build an empire? What would you do?" The decision was terrifying. $250,000 was a guarantee. A partnership was a risk. I gathered the children. "This isn't my decision," I told them. "This is our company. We vote." Jareth spoke first. "We don't sell. Grandma's name is not for sale." The other children agreed. They weren't just selling recipes, they were selling great-grandma's memory. The next day, I called Mr. Sterling. "We're partners," I said. The following weeks were a blur. Lawyers, contracts, and plans to build a real bakery in town. We were in the paper. The local news came to film us. I was signing the final partnership papers at my kitchen table, with Mr. Sterling and a lawyer present, when a taxi pulled up. My heart seized. It was the same sound of crunching gravel from that first day. The door opened, and she stepped out. Trina. She was clean. She wore new jeans and a jacket. She looked healthy. But her eyes were the same, hollow and haunted. She saw the news van, the expensive car, and the man in the suit on her mother's porch. "Mom," she said, her voice small and confused. What's going on?" "I saw you on the news." I stood up, the papers in my hand. "Trina." Mr. Sterling looked from me to her. I'm better now, Mom," she said, walking toward the porch. "I got into a program. I'm clean. I'm here for my kids. I'm ready to be their mother again." The children, who had been celebrating in the living room, froze. They came to the doorway and stood behind me. Little Lowell hid behind Jareth's legs. My babies," Trina cried, reaching out. "Look how big you are." She tried to push past me. "I'm here. Mommy's home." Jareth, now 16 and taller than me, stepped in front of me. He blocked her path. His voice was not the voice of a child. It was the low, cold voice of a man who had seen too much. "You're not our mother," he said. "You're just the woman who left us to starve. Get off this property." The ultimate confrontation. Will Agatha and the children forgive Trina? Trina crumpled. "Jareth, please. I'm your mother." "A mother doesn't leave," Cassidy said, her voice shaking but full of a new, hard strength. "A mother doesn't throw her children away with $51 and then call CPS on her own mother." "I was sick," Trina shrieked. "I wasn't myself. I made a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "It was a choice, Trina. You chose to leave. And I gestured to the 6 children standing with me, chose to stay. We chose to fight. We built this. Not you." Trina looked at me, her eyes begging. "Mom, please. I have nowhere else to go. Don't you love me?" "I will always love the daughter I raised," I said, and the words hurt. "But I don't trust the woman you became. You can't have them, Trina. They are not yours anymore. They are mine." She looked at the children, one by one. She saw no forgiveness. She saw no welcome. She saw 6 strangers, bound together by a trial she had inflicted. She saw a family that had been forged in the fire she started. And she saw that there was no place for her in it. She let out a dry, broken sob, turned around, got back in the taxi, and left. We watched her go. No one cheered. No one cried. We just stood there, and then, as one, we went back inside. We signed the papers. 1 year later, the first Agatha's Kitchen opened. It was beautiful, with bright windows and the smell of cinnamon and apples. Jareth was the business manager, and Oswin was learning to be the head baker. Cassidy and Naoma handled the front counter after school. Calla and Lowell were the official taste testers. And I was the CEO. The miracle wasn't the money, though the money meant we were safe. It wasn't the fame. The miracle was this. It was standing in a warm kitchen, surrounded by my 6 children, my 6 partners, watching them laugh. We had been abandoned with $51 and left to starve. But we hadn't starved. We had baked. And we had built a new life, a better life, from the only things we had left: flour, love, and each other. Thank you for joining Agatha's journey. What part of the story touched you the most? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories.